Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satan and Coffee. Hope everyone's doing well this morning. It has been an interesting week thus far. We are at Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. It is hump day. Hope you're all doing well. So this morning, what we're going to be talking about, what we have on the docket, is Luciferian rebellion in modern activism and the perversion of Lucifer by the professional victim. Something I kind of like to talk and bitch about quite often. For those that don't know, I offer a service. The service is Infernal Compass. It is left-hand path, Luciferian, Jungian life coaching. And there is an app underway. I am creating a web app for the service, which is free to use. It's in development. So, though it does kind of look like there is a certain piece that I'm having a hard time with, but it is in progress. It started very simple, and little by little, it is becoming very, very complicated as far as apps are concerned. There's a lot going into it to get it to where it needs to be. And yes, Altar of Darkness, it is a deep topic. So, Lucifer is the hand that tears the blindfold, not the hand that begs for mercy. As many of you know, here in this space, we honor rebellion as a rite of consciousness, not a costume for attention. So today we look at the modern activist landscape, where the Lightbringer's name is dragged into the theater of victimhood, moral performance, and identity as currency. Rebellion without responsibility is not Luciferian. It is tantrum dressed in ideology. So, let the morning fire expose everything that hides behind the virtue-signaling tribal banners and the glamour of perpetual grievance. So, Luciferian rebellion is rooted in agency, self-authorship, and sovereign responsibility. Activist rebellion is often framed as collective righteousness. The professional victim frames rebellion as a cry for protection. So if we were to break this down, Luciferian rebellion, internal first, external second, rejects imposed authority because it recognizes its own, not rooted in identity or oppression points, and refuses to trade autonomy for validation. Something we don't do. We don't look for validation on this path. We don't need it. We validate ourselves. Our work speaks for itself. In modern activist rebellion, it's often reactionary. It seeks external recognition, institutional approval, performs rebellion to gain social capital within ideological tribes. It's how that breaks down. And this is something that we've seen repeated time and time again, right? People constantly take their grievances and their gripes and they send them off publicly for people to validate and make them feel right in what it is that they're doing. The professional victim, the entire identity built on being harmed. The whole concept of professional victimhood is just that. The person's entire existence is built on something is harming them. There's always something in existence that is harmful. All the way down to things that just simply don't matter. Right? Transform suffering into moral authority. That because you suffer or have had suffered, or people that are no longer even connected to you from hundreds of years ago suffered something, and for some reason that provides you some type of moral benefit, becomes validation instead of self-endorsement and empowerment. Exactly. And within that, and that's good. That's good, Mr. Grimm. That's good. I'm proud of you for that. You know, the weaponization of weakness as proof of superiority. I'm going to repeat that one. The weaponization of weakness as proof of superiority. That because this person, because of whomever it is, presents with some level of weakness in some area of their life, that because of that weakness, that inherently provides them some level of superiority or moral highership. Because they are weak. The Luciferian and the left-hand path, we don't accept this. This isn't left-hand path. This isn't Luciferian. Fuck, it isn't even Satanism. It's the complete opposite. Maeve, hail, welcome. Invokes Lucifer as a mascot for alienation, not liberation. This is another one. They use the story, the biblical story of the fall, to justify their own alienation from society. That somehow they are parallel with Lucifer in Lucifer's struggle. That struggle is a representation of what it is that they're dealing with. What is happening? We are talking, we're doing the show. That is what is happening. We're talking about Luciferian rebellion in modern victimhood mentality, well, modern activism, rather. So, I got some coffee this morning. So, more wondering who was a victim today. No, this is just a generalization. No, this is not any one specific person. It's just kind of like something I'm kind of seeing along the line. And here's the problem. Here's another problem, right? It's not just like people think that when I talk about this stuff, I'm talking about the left. Like the left and the right both do this shit. Okay, both sides do this shit. So if we do get any leftists or any liberals that feel offended, I'm not just talking about you. The right also do this shit, right? Because they find the incessant need to bitch and complain and feel like victims about everything as well. Just different types of stuff, right? It's both sides. Both sides, you know, play the world's smallest fiddle for themselves, and then want the rest of the world to feel sorry for them. Christians today, use, I think there's some country off somewhere, where Christians are being killed or something like that, and all of a sudden, like, every single Christian feels like, they're being oppressed for being Christian. Like, you notice this narrative coming out where the Christians are like, oh, we're being killed, we're being murdered, right? And then, like, the Charlie Kirk thing happened, and then that just kind of furthered that, right? Like, it was like, well, see, they keep killing the Christians, and it's like, does it happen? Yeah, it happens. Does it mean it's every Christian? Does it mean that you as a Christian, your life is in danger? Probably not, right? Like, are you going to college campuses and, debating college students with a wide eye for the entire world to see? Do you have over 10 million people following you on most of your social media accounts? No, you don't. Trust me, nobody gives a shit about you. It's this incessant need for humanity, for people, to try to connect themselves to something larger than themselves so that they feel more important. That's where it stems from. Regardless of side, regardless of alignment, all of these dipshits do the same thing. They attach themselves to some group that is suffering in some way, shape, or form, or had suffered in some way, shape, or form, and then use that to kind of push themselves into the look what I have to do. No, you don't have to deal with it. You're not dealing with it. Shut the fuck up. Stop being a bitch. Like, really, stop. Stop it. Right? You might have some very loose affiliation to some group that is suffering somewhere in the world. That doesn't mean that you're dealing with it, because you're not. Okay? And so everybody's playing the victim card. And it's ridiculous. But the worst part about it is, the worst thing with it, in our sense, unfortunately, we do have to deal with the liberal professional victim. Why? Because, well, obviously, the Christian professional victim isn't going to be calling on Lucifer as a mascot for their alienation. Right? Right? They invoke Jesus. And unfortunately, Jesus is the representation of the professional victim. Right? I mean, dude was crucified for believing in something, right? And then, so that your professional victimhood is, yeah, there it is. There it is. Right out in the open. The Luciferian, however, Lucifer does not align with victimhood. You can be victimized, to be clear. You react or keep yourself. Well, I mean, that's something I always say, right? I mean, things can happen to us. I don't know how many times I've said this, right? And it's this is another thing about society, right? That really irritates me. The fact that I have to outline that. The fact that that isn't common fucking sense. The fact that I have to sit here and I have to be so utterly specific to try to cover my bases and explain to the world, yes, shit can happen to you. Yes, you can be a victim. Your choice to stay there defines whether or not you are just a victim or a professional victim. Why do I have to outline that? Like, isn't that fucking logical? Isn't that common fucking sense? Like, why does there have to be these idiots that are going to listen to me and sit there and say that being a professional victim, right, applies to anyone and everyone that was a victim of anything? Why? Why is it logical for these people to make that type of generalization? It doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, are you that intellectually inept that like you're completely void of any type of common fucking sense? Like, it really gets irritating with me that I have to specify so much shit in these shows, that I have to be so disgustingly specific to cover every single basis just to make sure that some dipshit doesn't get their feelings hurt. It's like, well, I was a victim and it wasn't my fault. And I'm not talking about the one-off thing that happened to you. Like, I'm talking about the act of staying inside of that mentality. It just really irritates the fuck out of me. Like, and that's part of that whole professional victim thing, right? That now you're a victim because I didn't specify that something happened to you at some point in your life and that you were a victim. And so now you're a double victim because I didn't specify that. And you want to turn around and say, it's a fuck you and your fucking microaggressions. Take your microaggressions, shove them so far up your fucking ass that you vomit them in the morning. Like, really? Fucking microaggressions. Oh, these fucking people. Common sense isn't so common, and professional victims make it harder for real victims. I completely agree, Mr. Grimm. I completely agree. Can't escape them, snowflakes. Yeah, right? Exactly. And the thing is these same motherfuckers want to turn around and invoke the name of Lucifer and sit there and say, well, I'm Lucifer's child, or, you know, I'm this, or I'm that. You know, with Lucifer, or like, what are some of the other ones? Lucifer's wife, Lucifer, like, or like, I've even seen like Lilith's husband or something like that, or was it Lilith's concubine? And I'm just like, do you fucking people actually believe this shit? Like, do you? Like, really? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Right? If Lucifer was in front of you, Lucifer would smack you across the fucking face, spin you around, and then kick you in the ass and say, wake the fuck up. Ugh. So rebellion without self-mastery is a child screaming at the wall. Lucifer's rebellion was the refusal to kneel as a principle of becoming. The professional victim kneels to their own story. They worship the injury. They baptize themselves in helplessness and call it power. Lucifer does not liberate the wounded ego. He raises it. Probably. You're probably right, Maeve. You're probably just like, what the fuck, and just walk away, right? Exactly. They declare themselves the child of a deity and then begin to get hurt over an online opinion. Exactly. It's like it's kind of like you do see like the imbalance there, right? Right. So what's the function here, right? So here we just kind of went over like the definition of kind of like the Luciferian rebellion, the modern activist rebellion, and the professional victim, right? So that's what that was about. We're kind of defining those terms. So what's the function? So Luciferian rebellion functions to create sovereignty. Activist rebellion functions to shift power between groups. Professional victimhood functions to freeze the self in a cycle of grievance. Okay. So it's important to understand these functions and how these things function and work. Okay, so we're going to go over this one more time. So when we look at Luciferian rebellion or Luciferianism in general, the left-hand path, the function there is to create sovereignty, self-agency. When we look at modern-day activism and activist rebellion, it's very clear that the purpose and the function is to shift power between groups, right? Which I'm not saying all the time is a bad thing. Sometimes a power shift is a good thing. But it's why are we shifting the power though, right? So if we have a group that has been able to take power, and then a group that just bitches about not having it, these are the types of people that when given power, like these are like the mall cops that act like they're like a full-fledged fucking career detective. Just think about that, right? Think about that concept. The people that bitch and complain about not having power, not having money, right? Like, that's a whole other thing about the victimhood mentality. Eat the rich. Stop getting pissed off at the rich. Like, really. You use Amazon. Shut the fuck up. Okay? Like, they bitch about Jeff Bezos, but then they order their tarot cards on Amazon. It's like, bruh. You know, choose one. So it's kind of like, you get these people that bitch about not having money, not having power, stuff like that. Those are the mall cops, right? And so these are the people that when you give them a plastic badge to watch a mall, they feel like a career detective. Because they get that little sliver of power and they immediately start to abuse it. What happened? What was the pinnacle of 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019? What was the pinnacle of it? Cancel culture. Right? What was the basis of cancel culture? The idea, the premise, the beginning of it made sense. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. The idea was to remove dangerous people, right? And have them suffer the consequences of their actions. That premise, very basically, isn't a bad thing. But what happened to these people, this minority group of people? They got a taste of power. So what happened? They started applying it to absolutely fucking anyone and everything they disagreed with. They were given a little bit of power, and then they abused it. Anyone and anything that they disagreed with in any way, shape, or form became a target. And they started following a formula. The initial breakdown, right? It spiraled down. So today, motherfuckers label anyone for cancel. Exactly, Samael. So the initial breakdown of this idea, this concept of cancel culture, was these dumbasses actually tried to go after Eminem. And I know it's a silly premise, and it's a meme now, right? It became a meme very quickly. But where they fucked up was trying to cancel someone that is quite literally uncancelable. Like, you can't cancel them. I don't even know if that's a fucking word. Uncancelable? Like, I don't know. But they went after Eminem. And that immediately turned them into a meme. Like, it didn't even, like, I think Eminem, like, replied, like, in one song, and I can't remember what the fuck the song was. It was, like, this animated song that he did. Like, he did a video for it. It was, like, all animated and cartoony and shit. And there was, like, one line that he, like, mentioned about, like, the people trying to cancel him. But it's like, they got so boastful in this little bit of power that they had, that they very quickly learned how much it doesn't matter. And what stripped all their power away was that after they went after Eminem, the rest of the world kind of learned, like, oh, you just ignore these motherfuckers and then that's it. Like the bully on the playground. Yeah, it became a playground to the cons, to be honest. Yeah, no, 100%. So we have seen so many people who start support groups who eventually gain clout or social power. Then we find they are lining their pockets with gold and not assisting those in need. Exactly. Use the tools provided for you. Self-improvement. They waste otherwise your mind, heart, and hands. Apply them daily to further yourself. 100%, Maeve. Completely agree with that point. I completely agree with that. Right? So anyway, so that was kind of like, you know, the initial kind of like breakdown of like the whole cancel culture thing, right? Now, the details of function here, right? So in Luciferian left-hand path function is break conditioning, confront shadow, assume consequences, and build self-direction. So the biggest problem here, the biggest clash with the professional victim, the left-hand path and Luciferianism, is the assumed consequences, right? I mean, the whole thing is kind of impossible for somebody that's a professional victim to actually partake in, but the assumed consequences, meaning accept accountability and responsibility for your shit, they will never do, because they're always projecting like their life and the position of their life is caused by external forces. And we understand in Luciferianism and Satanism and the left-hand path in general that we are responsible for where we are in our lives, right? The things that we have, the things that we don't have, the direction that we're going, the direction we didn't go. We are responsible for all of that. Again, can things happen to you? Yeah, of course they can. If you stay there, that's on you. None of these things the modern activists are able to do. This is the problem. And this is the biggest issue with so many people that are modern activists claiming to be Luciferian, Satanist, or, left-hand path. Because their very existence, the lifeblood of what makes them feel alive, is the complete contradiction to left-hand path philosophy. Because it is not about being a victim. It's about being a victim, but then finding your own power inside of that victimhood and then rising above. And this is perverted because they claim that by shouting at the rooftops that they've been hurt, that is them regaining power. And it's not, because when you do that, the only power you have is the power that other people give to you. If you shout at the rooftops and nobody listens to you because nobody gives a shit, you've gained nothing except for living inside of your victimhood. The only power in that cycle, in that structure, is the power that you obtain when other people validate your victimhood. So you're not gaining any personal autonomy or any sovereignty or power through your sovereignty and power through your own agency. You're not. The only power that you're gaining is power that is being granted to you by the mob. Once the mob disappears, so does your power. Exactly, Maeve. So your screaming your victimhood at the rooftop does nothing for you once everyone stops paying attention. Because then your only move forward is to continue being a victim. Nothing changes. And then what makes you a victim, that's the only thing that changes. You change the directive. You pivot the direction. I'm a victim here. Oh, this was taken care of. Now I'm a victim here. Okay, this was taken care of. Oh, now I'm a victim here. That is the only thing that changes. But at the end of the day, you're still a victim. When do you go from victim to survivor? What happened to that mentality? What happened to saying, yes, something happened to me. I was a victim, but I survived it. And now I'm better for it. Now I'm able to have all of this in my life that I've built. Because what do you build when you're screaming at the rooftops about your victimhood? A mob. You build a mob. But once that mob is gone, what do you have? What's left over? Except for empty fragility. Just personal fragility, just being broken all the time. What was repaired? It might feel exhilarating in the moment. And maybe this is the problem. Maybe it's because it's addictive. Because there's a dopamine hit that happens when you have large amounts of people that you don't know echoing your bullshit. But again, that's external validation. Once that's gone, What's left? You and nothing. The Luciferian, the left-hand path practitioner, the Satanist, we don't need nor look for nor beg for validation externally. We understand our own power. We understand our own agency. We understand our own sovereignty. We understand what is expected of us from ourselves, not from others, from ourselves. And we grow from that and with that. You get more attention when you're a victim than as a survivor, and you feel like the center of attention. Ah, exactly, 100%, Mr. Grimm. 100%. That is 100% it. Now, the activist function, influence policy or culture, generate solidarity, rally identity groups. The professional victims function, gain attention, sympathy, and leverage, avoid accountability, manufacture spiritual or moral authority without work. Luciferian rebellion demands you own the blade that cuts you free. Victim-based rebellion demands someone else carry the blade, swing it, and apologize for how heavy it was. One path births sovereignty, the other breeds dependency. And that's what we're looking at, right? Excuse me. When we look at modern day activism and professional victimhood, we see people breeding and living in dependency. Sorry, I just had my notification when I get an email of some dude with a British accent that says, "Master, another immortal dare disturbs you with email." It's a little distracting when it comes through. Surviving something and then guiding someone else through a similar situation or experience is a benefit, not being done for likes, clicks, influence, or clout. There's a reward in the act alone. 100%, Maeve, 100%. And that's the thing, right? Is, going through something and then taking what you've been through and then applying that, right, to other people, to help them through things. There's a recurring archetype in LHP, and it points out the idea to deal with your own shit instead of blaming others. Exactly, 100%. My notes. What I'm reading are my notes. It's my outline for the show. So that way I stay on point. Otherwise, I just ramble and I go all over the place. So, every worldview creates implicit pacts. Lucifer offers a pact of responsibility. Activist culture often demands a pact of conformity. The professional victim demands a pact of emotional servitude. And if we look at this is the funny thing, right? The pact of conformity. Think of this. The modern activist, the mentality of the modern activist is, if you don't think the way that I think about this thing, then you are the enemy. You must conform to my groupthink or you are the enemy. And again, this is dependent on the mob. This is dependent on the group. This is dependent on everyone having the same idea. And this is why these groups generally cannibalize themselves, because even internally, there's such a variation in how they believe and think about things that they begin to attack each other. Once there's no overarching enemy outside of the group, they start cannibalizing each other. It's very much, if you think about it, if you want to think about this and go governmental with it, like you want to go tinfoil hat conspiracy theory with it, think about the times that the United States has been the most unified, right? Two occasions directly come to mind. Pearl Harbor, 9/11. Those two occasions, those two times in history, the United States was the most unified it has ever been, culturally and politically speaking. The reason for that is because we had an overarching enemy to focus on. These small fringe groups, these minority groups, And when I say minority, I'm not talking about, do not pervert what it is that I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Political minority groups, fringe groups. These groups need to have an enemy image or they fall apart. They need to have something to target with their vitriol. If they don't, they destroy each other. Right? So they are dependent on the demand of conformity inside of the group. Whereas a true Luciferian, Satanist, left-hand path practitioner is a pact of responsibility. I am responsible for my life. I am responsible for where I am in my life. I am responsible for everything that happens and doesn't happen in my life. Me and me alone. The pact of emotional servitude. This one is even more interesting. Because with the pact of emotional servitude, it is servitude to your own emotions. It is servitude to your pain. It is servitude to your suffering. It's servitude to the things that hurt you. It is worship of weakness. It is worship of the worst moment of your existence. It is taking the thing that hurt you the most and putting it on the highest pedestal and perpetuating it. None of these things echo the philosophy of the left-hand path, Luciferianism, or even Satanism for that matter. And I use those three as the principle. There's more ideals that exist outside of those three, but I use those three because those are the most blatant, in-your-face examples of personal accountability and personal responsibility. Right? Left-hand path is an overarching philosophy that exists in Luciferianism and Satanism, but the basis of Luciferianism and Satanism as a philosophy is left-hand path, idealism, and function, which is rooted very deeply into Jungian psychology. And when we look at the Jungian psychology in these aspects, we understand that the ego and the shadow and the integration of the shadow into the ego, right? We understand this concept. We understand individuation, integration, responsibility for the past to be able to move forward. You can only make yourself feel as big or small as you want. I tell people this when say the words hurt. Yeah, right? Exactly. And here's the thing. They're not wrong. Words can hurt. They can hurt your feelings. But they're your feelings. It's the whole idea of being offended. If you're offended by something that I say, that's not my problem. I don't know how many times I have to say that. And people do not like that, right? People want to sit there and say, well, Atius, you have a responsibility to, make people feel heard or make people feel this or feel that. It's like, do I though? Like, do I have a responsibility to fucking make you feel better about yourself? I think I'm doing you more of a service by giving you a kick in the fucking ass and telling you wake the fuck up to feel good about yourself, regardless of what I say or what anyone else says. I think that's a bigger service than anything. Why do I have to sit here and walk around on eggshells for motherfuckers I've never even fucking met, that I've never even sat down and had a conversation with? Why? Why does anyone need to have that responsibility? If something I say makes you feel like less of a human being or makes you feel like just less in general, that says more about you and your fragility than it does about me. There's shit that people say all the time. I'm like, oh, I don't like that. But you know what I do? I don't watch them. Or, here's a big one. What I'll do is
I will go in and I will re-examine my own shit and be like, okay, why does that bother me? Why does this statement that this person said, why does this bother me? Like, why am I upset by this? What in me is fragile enough to be affected by this statement, to be affected by these words? What needs to change in me, for me, about me? Because it's me that was affected. It says something about me, not about the other person. Now, can people be dicks? Yeah, people can be dicks. There's bullies. Bullies exist. We know that, right? And guess what? You know what I teach my son, my 11-year-old son? When I teach him, so when I talk to him about bullies, so I say, if somebody is saying something to you, and somebody is saying things that hurt you, hurt your feelings, one, ask them to stop, right? Try to walk away, right? But if you can't walk away or they're persistent and you've already asked them to stop, knock them the fuck out. Lay them out. That's what I tell my 11-year-old son. Right? And a lot of people are about, but why violence? Because human beings are violent. Bullying, right? And incessant, consistent bullying, right, is a form of violence and projection. It's a projection of that person's left, right, good night. Exactly, right? It is a projection of that own person's fragility. But here's the other aspect of it. I don't believe that if somebody is projecting their fragility onto me or onto my kid, that I should have to deal with it and try to feel sorry for them. I'm sorry, that's a Christian concept, right? Love thine enemy. Fuck that. Be in charge of ourselves. Address the shadow. Yeah, 100%. So, the context here. So the breakdown. The Luciferian pact, right? And when I say pact, we're not talking about like an actual pact, right? We're talking about like the requirement, right, of the belief. So, or seemingly so. So the Luciferian pact is know yourself, resist illusion, walk without saviors, and own every result. Something good happens, good on you. Something bad happens, fix your shit. The Activists Pact, support the collective line, align with the group narrative, morality defined externally. The Professional Victims Pact, enable their story, agree they are powerless, join them in blaming systems, people, demons, spirits, and fate. Lucifer asks nothing but your spine. Professional victims demand your spine first, then your voice, then your alignment with their story. Their pact is silent coercion. Lucifer's pact is brutal clarity. So, the one thing that I think we need to talk about, the elephant in the room with this, is equality. Right? Because that's the professional victim. That's like their biggest thing, equality, right? And everybody wants to talk about equality. First and foremost, off the top of my head, we already have equality. We're not talking about equality anymore, right? We're talking about equity, and equity is bullshit. It just is. Sorry, right? Equality gives everyone an equal opportunity. And inside of equality, you understand whether you're good at something or you're bad at something. If you're bad at something, you shouldn't have access to be able to do that thing, right? Talking about jobs and stuff. If you're horrible at a job, you shouldn't be working that job on the basis of equity. Equality says that if you have 3 people and 3 people are decent at something, that the best person out of those 3 gets the job, gets the access, is able to do the thing, right? The people that try and fail need to find another way to do it. It's not that they can't, but then now the ingenuity and the improvisation needs to take place. Something that lazy people simply just don't want to do. And unfortunately, most activists and professional victims are lazy motherfuckers because all of their energy goes into being a victim. They want you to say, feel sorry for me. Give me the shit that I want. I don't want to work for it. Which is why probably most of these motherfuckers are also the eat the rich motherfuckers. And again, I will repeat what I said. They hate Jeff Bezos and the amount of money that motherfucker has, which is disgusting. He has a disgusting amount of money. But he earned every cent of it. And the same people that complain about Jeff Bezos are the same people buying their tarot cards and their candles on Amazon. Luciferianism emphasizes equal opportunity for self-creation, not forced equal outcomes. Modern activism often confuses equality with entitlement. Professional victims weaponize equality as a demand for emotional obedience. So, in Luciferian equality, it's every person may build themselves. No one gets exempt from work. Self-determination is sacred. These are important points. We all have the opportunity and the ability to build ourselves and create a better version of ourselves. No one is exempt from the work. No one gets a pass. If you don't get to do the work, you don't get the outcome, right? There is a path. There is work that needs to be done in everything we do in life. This isn't just a spiritual philosophy. This is a life philosophy. Okay? You put in the work, you get the results. You don't get the results without the work. End of story. Activist equality is systemic fairness, redistribution of privilege. Professional victim equality, if I feel harmed, you owe me compliance. My lived experience overrides your autonomy. This is what's happening. Like people, like we need to realize this and we need to come to terms with this is what's happening. This is the request. My lived experience overrides your autonomy. You're not allowed to have an opinion because you can't experience the same thing that I experienced, which is bullshit. Now, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one, right? Just because you have an opinion, you have the right to an opinion doesn't mean that your opinion is right. But everyone does have the right to the opinion, to their own ideas, to their autonomy, to their sovereignty. And like I said about myself, if someone says something and I disagree with it, I have to look at that. I have to examine, why do I disagree with this? Do I disagree with this on the basis of what I believe? Or do I disagree with this because it's making me question what I believe? Because it's one of the two. When you disagree with something, it's one of those two things. And so therefore you have to do internal work. And all of this, the Luciferian concept, the left-hand path philosophy, is a forced revelation in constant perpetual motion. You are constantly working on the self. You are constantly trying to understand why something affects you, why something makes you think this or feel that, or yada, yada, yada. That is the basis of it. So if I disagree with someone, the first thing that I do when I disagree, like any human being, is I argue the point. And if my points and if my belief is able to allow me to get to the point of saying, okay, I believe that I have defended my position sufficiently enough and that my opinion and my idea stands on its own merit. Awesome. Good. Done. If I try to defend my point, like any natural human being, but then I realize that I keep getting toppled in my points, that tells me, oh shit, there's something wrong with my opinion here. So, one, I either need more information that's going to help support my point, or come to the realization that my point is wrong. And accept, hey, okay, I was wrong. Let's change this. Let's make this different because I learned something about myself today. This is something that the activist and the professional victim cannot do. This is why arguments inevitably always degrade to name-calling, insults, and threats, because their arguments cannot stand on their own merit. So what happens is there's a short list of buzzwords that are used to attack someone and their character because the point has no leg to stand on. And again, that falls into the my lived experience overrides your autonomy. If I feel harmed, then you owe me recompense. And so that is the natural cycle. They can't argue their merit. There is no merit to the argument. You harmed me. You owe me now because you harmed me. Buzzwords make words lose their meanings. Exactly. Nazi doesn't mean anything anymore. Right? Also, another thing that irritates the fuck out of me. Unaliving. For fuck's sake. Just use the terms. Murder, suicide, death. Right? Like, it's the same thing. Like, trying to switch it up to be trendy, it's just, and that's what it is. It's not trying to be nice to people. And then the fact that like algorithms fall into this shit on social media, and then it was just probably why my channel isn't growing, because like I'm not, you know, afraid to take. Guys, would you guys please stop coming in here and asking me jackassy questions about shit that has absolutely nothing to do? I'm not here like, does this look like I'm here to be your soapbox? Like, am I here to, you know, cater to what you want me to talk about? Like, have you been paying attention for like 2 minutes? Or did you just pop in and decide I'm going to ask this motherfucker this stupid fucking question? Like, for fuck's sake, man. Right? Jesus Christ. So that's where this shit goes. Equality is not sameness. Liberation is not pampering. Lucifer breaks chains, then expects you to walk. Professional victims break nothing and demand you drag them forward. And that's what it turns out to be. That's what it always is. You hurt my feelings. You did this. I'm a victim, and now I'm more of a victim because you disagreed with me. Your disagreeing with me is a microaggression, and it's verbal violence. It can be aggressive. It can be aggression. I'm an aggressive person, if you can't tell. Verbally so. Passionate, right? Passionate aggression, right? But is it violence? No, it's not. Because see, I think I'm a member of the last generation. I honestly believe, as an elder millennial, I am the very last and final generation, because I was on the ass end of Gen X, to live through the fuck around and find out era, right? Like, you say some stupid shit, you get knocked the fuck out. That's what happens. Right? And there's something to be learned in that process. And then you get some people that say, well, I don't think that that's justified ever. Well, guess what? Look at how people act from that era, and look at how people act in this era. There's a difference. It's like, it's kind of stark, the differential, right? Most people in Gen Z, you go, and they cry, and they scream, and they yell, right? And then they try to get the mob against you. Tell me I'm wrong. And I said most. There's exceptions. So, what are the techniques here? Lame times. I miss the early 2000s. There was zero filter, no PC. Right? Right? I missed the late 90s and early 2000s. Right? Even like cinematic art. was so much more expressive then. You know, like even like the early to mid 90s. Like, I mean, look at stuff like, you know, movies like Spawn and The Crow and, you know, stuff like that. And like, look at music videos from then. Like, you know, it was so different. Like, for fuck's sake, I mean, we had Antichrist Superstar in 96, right? Marilyn Manson had Tits in 98, right? And yeah, people were triggered. People were upset. But it still existed, right? That was going against the grain. They had their opinion. They could say that they disagreed with it, that they didn't like it, that they didn't want to have it out there, but it was still there. It couldn't be taken away, right? Now, the whole thing is taking it away, right? The cancel culture thing. It's we need to take away these things out of existence. You know, nobody's better than anybody. Right? The Christian right went up in arms about Marilyn Manson and Antichrist Superstar and Slipknot and all that stuff and violent video games, Doom, Quake, all that stuff. You know, the left goes up in arms about other opinions. Everybody's going up in arms because they disagree with somebody. Everybody's a victim because they disagree with somebody, because something exists that they don't think should exist. And it's like, get over it. It's like people getting pissed off at me because I say that, like, you know, I'm you know, essentially like a conservative Satanist, like, or a conservative Luciferian, or whatever the fuck you want to call me. Conservative not being parallel with Republican, by the way. But I say that, and then people freak the fuck out. They go, well, you can't be goth. If you're conservative, you can't be goth. Or if you're conservative, you can't be Luciferian. You can't be left-hand path. I don't have to tell you, motherfucker, I'm right here. Because I am left-hand path, Luciferian, and goth. And a conservative. So I don't know what to tell you. Right? I mean, because here I am. Like, you tell me that I can't exist, but I do exist. Right? Like, it's kind of like they want to take things away. They want to take it away from you, right? Then, well, you can't be this. Well, fuck you, I am. There you go. That's what I think of your opinion. That's it. That's, you know. So, Luciferian rebellion uses internal alchemy. Activist rebellion uses rhetoric and mobilization. Professional victims use emotional manipulation. I'm going to repeat this one more time because this is an important point here. Okay, so we look at Luciferianism. Luciferian rebellion uses internal alchemy, changing the self, growing, right? Something gets presented to you and you grow from it, right? An activist rebellion is rhetoric and mobilization, right? So rhetoric, propaganda, ideas, buzzwords, and then mobilization. Get the mob together, make change. Which, in certain circumstances, isn't inherently or necessarily a bad thing. It's not saying that that's all the time a bad thing and should never happen. The way it's happening as of late, never, no. Okay? Professional victims use emotional manipulation. That's the big thing, right? You hurt my feelings, you owe me recompense, right? Emotional manipulation, right? You can't be this thing because it's against this idea. Everything's inherently political. No, it's not. Like, I hate to break it to you, but not everything is fucking political. The occult is not political. Has it been politicized? Yes. But politicizing something does not make it political. Something can be used politically. That does not make it inherently political. And we need to agree on the definition here. Inherently is to say that something is intrinsically endowed with the fundamental basis of said thing. So it is to say that the occult is inherently political is to say that it is endowed and created with the function of being political. It is not. It is not. Can it be politicized? Yes. Has it been politicized in the past? Yes. Anything and everything can be politicized. That does not make it inherently political. The fact that people want, like, I particularly like the word inherently because it does describe something and its function at a fundamental basis when something is inherent. But the fact that people keep using words without understanding the correct fucking context in which to use them is irritating as shit. The amount of people, it's inherently, it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, really, shut up. So, again, the detailed breakdown. Luciferian techniques here: shadow integration, archetypal invocation, will-based discipline, personal gnosis, right? This is the technique, the developmental process of the Luciferian technique. Activist technique: protest, media, community organizing, legal and political pressure. Again, that's not inherently bad, but it can be when it's applied with the professional victim technique, which is guilt, perceived fragility, moral accusation, and emotional inflation. Right? All of those things, when the activist and the professional victim go together, which most of the time they are, professional victims usually are activists to some degree, those are dangerous precedents to be set, and none of them deal with the self. None of them talk about personal accountability or personal growth. Okay? Lucifer's technique is illumination. Activism's technique is amplification. Professional victimhood's technique is distortion. One sharpens sight, one raises volume, one poisons clarity. Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I'm not necessarily attacking the activist here, right? There are things that I think are detrimental in terms of left-hand path and Luciferian ideals, but I don't inherently think that activism in and of itself is a bad thing. I think that it is a necessary thing to have in society, right? Cowboy Norse pagan could be interesting. I like that. I work with a cowboy Norse pagan. Oh, interesting. Very cool. I dig that. Like, I'm just picturing Thor in a cowboy hat and Mjolnir as a lasso. So the activist isn't inherently in and of itself a bad thing, but when paired with the professional victim, it becomes dangerous, and not in a good way. So integration, right? Luciferian rebellion becomes meaningful only when integrated into a mature identity. Activism becomes useful when grounded in responsibility. Professional victimhood collapses any chance of integration because it rejects internal growth. So here's the problem, right? So this is where, again, activism, it becomes useful when it's grounded in responsibility. Once people are responsible and understand what it is that they're fighting for, activism has its place. Luciferian rebellion is meaningful when we integrate and we have a mature identity of ourselves. And that identity isn't projected onto the rest of the world, that we don't need the rest of the world to mirror our identity or validate our identity. We are validated in our own existence. Like, it is quite literally like the basis of, I guess, at this point, my online existence, because again, the whole concept of the conservative Luciferian goth, Satanist goth thing, right? People say that it shouldn't exist, that it doesn't exist, that it can't exist, that it's contradictory. But I don't need other people to validate my existence. I don't need people to sit there and say, yes, that's a thing. I don't care. You want to sit there and say, well, no, you're completely contradicting. I don't give a shit, because I am me. I exist. I'm here. Like, I don't need external validation. I am validated by my own existence. The fact that I am who I am, and I do what I do, and I feel how I feel, and I think how I think, that is validation enough for me. I don't need other people to validate my existence. And to be quite honest, no one has ever presented a strong enough argument to the contrary of what it is I think and believe for me to sit there and go, maybe I should think about this. Because the arguments that have been presented have always been strawman arguments. nothing with a foundational structure that is important. So what does integration require? Well, integration requires accepting the consequences of rebellion. There are consequences. Stable self-definition, right? So being stable in how you identify yourself and who you are, and the internal validation that comes with that, being able to validate yourself. The ability to act without performance. So you're not doing something for clicks, for views, for the mob. You are who you are all the time, whether there's a camera on you or not. So though there's a lot about my personal life you guys will never know, the person you're looking at, the person I'm talking to, it's not a personification. It's not a character. This is me. Like, the only thing I can be is authentic with you motherfuckers. Like, I can't pretend to be something or think something or believe in something that I don't believe in, or that I don't think or I don't feel. I can't pretend. I can't create a character that isn't at least somehow connected to myself. So is Atius Dade my real name? No, but Atius Dade is just as much me as my government name. Right? It's taken me years to find that name, to create that name, to figure out what encompasses who I am, to show to you guys. And so, though Atius Dade may not be my real name, and for those that are coming, well, if you're so comfortable, use your real name. No, I'm not that stupid. Right? We're talking about the internet, right? So I have done a very good job and a lot of work to make sure that my legal name doesn't exist anywhere online, at least in reference to me. It exists for other people. There's other people who have the same fucking first and last name as me, but me, personally, this face, my legal name doesn't exist online. Well, that's the thing. Like, the only thing I can do is be authentic and give, like, my opinions and my ideas on things. That's it. That's all I can do. And so this isn't an act. Like, again, like, are there a lot of things about my personal life you guys will never know? Yeah, of course there is. And that's my personal life. You guys don't need to know that. But who is talking in front of this camera right now, who's live and sitting here in his office dining room, it's just as much me as the me off the camera. Like, I can't be something I'm not. Good morning, Tree Sap. I just can't be. I can't be something I'm not. I really can't. So that's the stable self-definition, right? Authenticity of self all the time. Be you all the time. Be who you are. Be stable in who you are. The ability to act without performance, right? So you don't do things just because other people are going to agree with them, and then cleaning your inner field before declaring war on the world. Like, make sure that if you're going to declare war on something, that your shit's worked out before you do. Right? Make sure that you don't have any landmines of your own that you're going to trip over. Because a lot of people fall into that, where they jump the gun and they go right into declaring war on something, and then they fall flat on their face because they forgot the tripwire was there. So make sure your inner field is clear and clean before you start declaring war on something. Make sure you understand in detail what it is that you're declaring war on. Right? Lucifer does not rebel to be seen. He rebels because truth demands it. The professional victim rebels to be comforted. And there is no integration in that. Only orbiting the same wound. Right? And that's what this whole thing's about, right? So trying to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Exactly. Oof, it's been forever since I've heard that one. That was a good one. Thank you for memory lane there, Teresa. God damn. So it's, we rebel because we want truth, right? As Luciferians, as you know, practitioners on the left-hand path philosophy, we rebel not for rebellion's sake or for people to see us and agree with us, but because we want truth, right? I deny Abrahamic faith not because I want people to say, ooh, look at him, shocking, edgy, but because I want truth from that disagreement, from that contradiction, from that difficulty in understanding. I want truth. Not my truth, the truth. There's a difference. That's another thing that irritates the fuck out of me is my truth. Your truth is just your opinion. It's how you feel. It's not truth. Truth is based on facts. And facts aren't subjective. Now, somebody did say a while ago, well, facts can change. Yes, facts can change. But there's a process, a very long, egregious process that you have to go through to change a fact. Can a fact change? Yes. With the introduction of new information and then testing inconsistent results. That can change a fact. But generally speaking, facts are facts and they're not subjective. They don't change based on a person's fucking opinion or perspective of it. They just are. They exist. Right? End of story. So my truth is the truth because the truth is the only truth that exists. So therefore, it's not my truth. It's just the truth. Right? My opinion is not truth. It is a subjective idea. That's my opinion, not truth. It's that simple. Right? I don't have my truth. I have my opinions, and those are subjective. And they can very easily be swayed and changed with the introduction of new information, provided that it is logical. But truth doesn't change, generally speaking, right? Because it's based on facts. And, you know, I'm going to say the one thing that irritates a lot of fucking people. Facts don't care about your feelings. They really don't. Right? And neither do I. So, with all that being said, right? The professional victim is someone I pity. I don't hate them. I don't hate the professional victim. They irritate the fuck out of me. That's for sure. They definitely irritate the shit out of me. But I don't hate them. I do pity them. I do. Like when I see, like they used to piss me off. Like when I see those videos on YouTube and stuff like that of people like acting like Karens and screaming and yelling, being dumbasses, you know, and not having intelligent conversation with people when people are actually trying to talk to them. Like it used to piss me off. Now it's just kind of like, you're so broken that you just want to break something outside of yourself. Like that's what it is. You are so internally broken that you just want to project that fragility and those fractures and those pieces and try to use them to break something outside of yourself so you can feel less broken. Would Melinda be a professional victim? No, I would. With Melinda, I'm going to be honest with you. I would label Melinda more of a just fear mongering. Like, because she's never really been like poor me or really attacked many. Like she's attacked groups and people and stuff like that. But it's more fear mongering than anything else, which can feel sometimes very similar to professional victimhood. Right? But no, I would not put Melinda in the category of a professional victim. Would definitely put her in the category of fear mongering. So oddly terrifying maiden. Hello. So, and sometimes those things can feel very similar. They are different. And so when it comes to the professional victim, fear mongering, people that practice fear mongering, I guess you could call it a fear mongerer. They piss me off. Professional victims, I just feel pity. I feel sorry for them because they're so broken that they don't know how to heal. And so they feel like they need to break something outside of themselves to make themselves feel better about the world around them. And so they want, you know, you guys ever hear the phrase misery loves company? It's very true. Misery loves company. Miserable people want other people around them to be miserable so they feel less miserable. So they can complain about other people being miserable. So it makes them feel and seem less miserable. But misery loves company. It does. And people that are miserable will always find a way to try to make you fucking miserable. And I feel sorry for them, and I feel pity for them. But so long as they continue to try to destroy the world around them, I don't feel that they deserve what would be, I guess, what would be considered mercy, I suppose. A lot of people online are like that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are. But it's because, here's the thing. So some people, like, so when we talk about professional victims, like, sometimes they're people that just, you know, don't realize that their victimhood is, you know, stretched out that far. And sometimes it's people that believe that they need to present themselves as a victim to grow online. That's the thing. I mean, think about it. A lot of people online are like that. Why? What happens, especially like on like a platform like TikTok, for example, or Threads, you know, when you play the victim, usually people will flock to what it is that you're saying. So there's one post that I posted on Threads years ago, a couple years ago, I think it was, maybe a year ago. I don't know how long Threads has been around, but between the year, 2 years. And I was talking about like my past with my dad and shit, right? That post got the most interactions, likes, comments, all of that shit. And then anything else that like I put out there about self-empowerment, about Luciferianism, about the left-hand path, barely even gets touched, if it does. And that proves a point to me that most people, like, it reminds me of this meme, this thing that exists that I've seen online where you have two stalls and it says people that want change and people that want to change. The line for people that want change is an infinite line. It's endless. There's nobody at the line for people that want to change. And so the one thing I've learned about online, you know, culture, like internet culture, digital culture, is everyone, it's a problem-based culture, right? We love to scream and yell about the problems. We love to scream and yell about the things that we don't like, the things that we want, you know, to change and stuff like that, but we never provide a solution. Right? People want to talk about racism. They want to talk about inequality. They want to talk about equity. They want to talk about all of these things. They want to talk about, you know, pay problems, government issues. Everybody's got a problem to talk about. Everybody's got something to bitch about. Everyone's got a basis to go in and sit there and say, well, here's the proof that this problem exists. I don't think I've ever actually seen someone talk about a solution. Like, hey, let's try this to fix this. I don't think I've ever actually seen it. Because society doesn't want to focus on the solution. It's easier to say that there's a problem and then have a bunch of people agree with you that there's an issue and that there's a problem and that something, it's somewhere down the line, at some level, some way needs to be fixed, than it is to actually present a solution. And I think if we put a quarter of the energy into finding a solution that we put into talking about the fucking problems that exist, we'd have a lot of solutions to go through. But nobody talks about solutions. Nobody gives a shit about solutions. We like to bitch and we like to complain. And this is where the professional victim mentality comes from. This is where comes in. Right? Sadly. And in the left-hand path, Luciferianism, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is the path to find solutions to the world's greatest issues. We're not going to cure cancer or, you know, feed the hungry all over the world, right? We're not going to get rid of starvation and stuff like that. But at the very least, in our own existence, we're able to look at ourselves and find solutions to our own problems. Right? So we're able to look in at what we need to fix in ourselves because we understand one thing. The one thing that is the easiest for us to control, and the one thing that is we are guaranteed to be able to change and find a solution to, is ourselves and who we are and how we live our lives. The whole concept of self-deification, individuation, integration, that is self-deification. Integration, individuation, control, personal power. That is self-deification. That is being a god. You're able to change yourself. You ever hear the phrase, be the change you want to see? There's a reason for that, right? Because if you don't practice what you preach, then you probably shouldn't be preaching it. So anyway, that is going to conclude this morning's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys had, you got something out of it. Went a little bit longer than normal. But thank you guys for being here. You guys are fucking awesome. And as always, hail thy fucking self. Oh, quickly. Also, the Infernal Compass app will be coming soon. I'm deciding whether or not it's going to be an installed app or a web app that you use a domain name to get to, but it's coming. Anyway, hail thy fucking self. We'll see you in the next one. Peace the fuck out.